Um, I've worked in Africa, I've worked in South America, I've worked just about everywhere. I worked in Russia. Because I say that, people make the assumption that, I'm relatively wealthy and I globetrot and um, and because I have a doctorate degree, the people say, oh, he's well literate, etc. And what they don't know about me is that I was born and raised in Camden, New Jersey, arguably America's worst city. And I was raised in the worst parts of the worst city, on welfare, in public housing, the whole 9 yards. So when I talk about racial justice, when I talk about how the world works, I'm not talking about it from a theoretical point of view. I'm not talking about it because I heard these things somewhere. I'm not talking about it because I read this in a book somewhere. I'm talking about it because this is my own lived experience and the lived experience of many and probably most of the people on our planet right now. The planet doesn't work for anybody. So I wrote a book some time ago called Creating a World That Works for All. And that is my motivating principle. How do we create a world that works for all living beings? Not just for me, not just for me and my friends, not just for people who agree with me. How does it work for all living beings? That's been my vision and my goal, is what wakes me up and gets me out of the bed in the morning. And it ought to be the thing that works for all of us also. And I've got an awful lot more to say about it, but I said I was going to restrict myself to 4 minutes, and I just did. Yay, I win. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Scott, and get us the rest of the way down the road today.
All right. Well, thank you. And I really appreciate you establishing that too. Thank you. Well, I'm going to bring up Reverend Brig Feltus. Some of you have seen her on our shows before. I was first introduced to her by Trish, and I'm going to come back on for a moment with you. I should say, where's Trish? It's a Friday night. Her favorite people are here. She adores Bridge Feltus. This is her teacher. She adores Sharif, but as fate would have it, she's in Costa Rica, attending a workshop that doesn't end until another hour. So she might pop on at the end. She sends a lot of love. And she also sent a video, which we will probably play at the very, very end of the show if she doesn't make it live with us. So that's where Trish is. And Trish is who introduced me to Bridge. And she has taken Bridge's course twice now. Bridge is an artist, a singer, a metaphysical minister. She's the founder and CEO of the Intersection for Mankind. She's the founder, dean, and headmaster teacher for the Remember Institute, which is where Trish has taken her courses. These two organizations set out to inspire humanity to consider the necessity for the disciplines of art, science, spirituality, and technology to collaborate for the benefit of humanity. I love that so much, I'm going to say it again. These two organizations that she has created set out to inspire humanity to consider the necessity for the disciplines of art, science, spirituality, and technology, ideally in that order, to collaborate for the benefit of humanity. Bridge, I love that. And I have such great respect for you, and I'm really grateful that you're spending your evening with us.
I'm very happy to be here, Scott. I would add that this concept of the four disciplines is an ancient concept. I was inspired by the tradition of Sankofa, which comes from the Twi language of Ghana. It means to retrieve or to go back and get what was left behind. It is a practice and a philosophy around valuing wisdom from the past that we have misunderstood and quite possibly abandoned too soon. And in particular, well, my colleagues and I come from a background in Kemetic science, and the Kemetic culture of Kemet, or Egypt, as it's now called, they studied art, science, technology, and spirituality as one discipline, not as separate disciplines. And combining them or collaborating between these disciplines creates integration in a way that we do not have in most modern so-called developed societies. Religion is kept separate from science, and science and art are sometimes collaborating, but that's considered to be sort of avant-garde to do so. It's not necessarily, everything in Western society is really revolving around capitalism. So to bring these things back into interaction with each other creates some accountability. It creates ethics that might not necessarily be considered. It's also about the person, the individual, and how when I think about art or science or technology or spirituality, the way that I apply them in my life is a lot more useful, a lot more masterful when I consider all four together. So, for example, as an artist, it's good, the science part would be, for example, to know my tools, know the mediums that I'm using, know how they interact with each other. That's the science of that. And the spiritual part would be perhaps the spontaneous inspiration that comes from the ether, or comes through me instead of me. So this is kind of an example of what I mean by science and spirituality and art and technology working together. So that's it's sort of it is decolonizing.
You know, one of the things that I so respect about you and Sharif and Antoinette is that you all lead very balanced lives. And that's what I'm hearing, you know, as you're expressing. I'll bring Sharif on for a moment, and then we'll bring on Antoinette. You lead balanced lives. You're artists. I first met Sharif through a show we did on one of our environmentally themed shows, because he's an environmentalist. And so I really acknowledge, Trish keeps saying, we've got to have Bridge on one of our mystical shows. She's a mystic. We've got to have her on one of those shows. So I do appreciate, you know, the balance of your lives. And that's really important. You know, it is important for us to lead balanced lives, and the integration of science and spirituality, which is one of my favorite topics, but I'm not going to talk today too much. So I could go there, but I do want to introduce who actually is joining us. I'm really grateful. This is also one of our favorite people that's been on my shows many, many times, and this is Antoinette. Welcome, Antoinette. Thank you so much for being with us. And for anybody who doesn't know Antoinette, she's a world-renowned keyboardist in the reggae world. And in 2019, she was appointed the renowned reggae musicians as Goodwill, she and her husband, Pato Banton, as Goodwill Ambassadors of the Golden Rule. And again, talk about a balanced life. She's a musical artist. She's a spiritual teacher. She's an activist. She's an extraordinary woman. And Antoinette, thank you for being with us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Scott. You know, every time when you do this, I'm always have to tune in the entire weekend. Last time was so amazing. And I'm so glad to see Sharifa and Reverend Brigg here as well, too, because I've been hearing so much about your course. And Trish has been talking about it a lot. And I've been so ecstatic about it. I was like, yes, finally somebody's getting up in there and getting the truth and getting it hardcore like how it's supposed to be, because you know I've tried it's hard, you understand, you know what I'm talking about when it's hard when we're trying to bridge that divide. And when I did try to bridge that divide, um, it was very difficult for people who are not used to getting that bridge part yet. So,
Indeed.
so when we're dealing with the white fragility and the tears and everything else, I mean, it was like really, really raw at first. So I had to step back from that for a moment. But
Well, this
anyway,
is why I created that course, actually,
mhm.
because I was having these conversations a lot, and it was very difficult to sort of sort through people's intentions and their fears and self-doubts and all of the people don't think about this, but white supremacy oppresses white people as well, just in a different way.
Mm-hmm. And then there
And so
oh, sorry. Anyway, and also with Sharif, I traveled a lot as well too. And this was one of the things that kind of led up to the bridging part as well. It's like my husband is a Black man, and every single time I'm like, how he's not the angriest Black man, you know, white people don't understand because they always sit there and say he's always smiling. All the pictures you see, you always see him just grinning from ear to ear. He's always smiling. He's always cheerful. He's always optimistic. But what they don't see is all the things that he has to live through and the experiences he has to go through. So just like Sharif was sitting there speaking about, people will sit there and make assumptions, maybe because he's a celebrity or maybe because he's famous or maybe because people might know him, but his Black skin, his Black skin is always going to be an issue no matter where he goes, anywhere in the world. Same thing for me. When we went to Africa, he's darker than me. Here he's considered charcoal. He's Black, but in Africa, he's light skinned, because and I'm white. I go over there, I'm just Asian. I'm not even, they're like, I'm Chinese or something like that.
I'm super white.
I'm super white, exactly. But I mean, when you see the pictures, it's like the color tones of the colorism with each other and stuff. So everybody always thinks that justice or racism is something that only happens here in America, but it's really all over the place. We cannot escape it. We can't escape it in Europe. We can't escape it in Asia. We can't escape it in South America. We can't escape it anywhere that we go, other than, we keep talking about it and we keep sitting there letting them know the issues about when justice for us means justice for everybody. So, don't think that, Black Lives Justice is going to be any different for any Native Americans or any Chinese or any Mexicans or anybody else, because everybody else ends up getting the same justice when we achieve and get that justice. So everybody just stop skipping the line. Just know that we're all in this together and we can get this together. Because I've been there and supported everybody's cause, including the whales and the dolphins and everything else that you can think of. But, I need everybody else to sit there and be with us, to sit there and support our lives as much as the pets and the whales and the fish and the birds and the people over there and everything else. We should be considered on the same equal level playing field too. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sharif.
Yeah, if I can add, because I was Anthony, you were talking, I was laughing because I was over in Uganda some years ago, and I was doing some workshops there and with the UN. And this is like a week-long workshop, and there were 4 or 5 whites from the UN who had traveled with me. And they kept, during our casual time, they kept looking at me to the point I was like, "What are you staring at?" And they said, "Well, we want to see how you're reacting, to kind of being in the motherland for the first time." And I said, "Do you recognize that I don't look like anybody here? Okay. I'm a foot taller. I'm lighter. I have a facial hair, and East African men tend not to. Nobody thinks I'm from here except you." And so that our challenge is, how do all of us, not just white people, as we're saying, how do all of us embody a new perspective of what it means for us to be living beings on the planet? I was hired, say one more thing. I was hired by the Housing Authority here in Portland, Oregon, some year ago. They they wanted my advice on how to handle a problem. They had new people coming into the housing projects from East Africa, and some of the tenants were making fun of them, and they're making fun of them because of their skin color. And the people who were making fun of Black people were Black people. Okay. Oh, look at them. They're so Black. Oh my God. And not conscious of how separating that is. Not conscious of how down-putting that is. And so this is something, if a white person had said it to them, they would have been on top of it in 1 second. But the fact that they are perpetuating behavior that they would condemn means that there's a disconnect. And one of my jobs, and I think one of our jobs, is curing this disconnect. All of us need to say and need to be able to demonstrate that Black lives matter. I mean, that they really matter. It's not just a slogan. It's not, a yard sign that you put up in your yard. It's actually how you act during your day. And if you're a Black person saying Black lives matter, it's how you treat yourself.
Amen. Listen, y'all, I wanted to say a couple of things. All but 5 countries on the planet have been impacted by European colonization. All but 5.
Wow.
All but 5 countries on the entire planet. So that's one thing. Africa is not a country. Africa is a continent with many countries, and in those countries, many cultures, many tribes, many ethnic groups. We are not a monolith. So I wanted to say that as well. And then in the Heal Thyself course, we have one of the 6 weeks we spend looking at 20,000 years of race history. And we talk about in that time how we got here. When we talk about white supremacy, we are talking about a narrative, an idea, a paradigm, a way of thinking, a belief system. That belief system influences anyone born into it. So Black people born in a white supremacist society have to overcome internal white supremacy. And one of the best examples of this historically was a research project called the Clark experiments, the Clark doll experiment. When we're done with this, y'all should actually Google that and have a look at the video footage of these young children of all different races who were shown pictures of dolls, pictures of children. They were shown actual dolls of different races, and they were asked which one was the pretty one, which one was the ugly one, which one was the good child, which was the bad child. And regardless of race, they always chose the white child as the pretty child, as the good child, as the nice child. And they always chose the darker skinned child or doll as the ugly one, as the not so nice or mean one. And this includes Black children. So children are all in these societies where white supremacy is the dominant narrative. They all grow up in that paradigm. We all grow up in that paradigm. So the nuances there we have to take into account. And I really want to just recommend that white people understand that Black people overcoming this is a Black people conversation that we have with each other. And it's not white people's job to overcome, judge or critique Black people overcoming that. It's white people's job to overcome their own, to acknowledge, to learn as much as you can about how programming happens, how this conditioning happens, where you can see it all throughout. It's like we live in an ocean of this. It's everywhere. And so to deny that you have it in you is unrealistic. You inevitably have it in you if you are born into a white supremacist society where the white gaze, the white narrative, white comfort, white privilege, white fragility, all these things are the dominant narrative, and you're born into it. We could start as early as the fairy tales that you were read as a child. What did the villain look like?
Right.
Where did the evil witch live? She was probably disabled. She's hunchback. She's not attractive. She's olive skin. She's big nose, broad nose. Most likely,
Yeah.
She's not a white woman. Almost always, the prince or the princess is fair skinned. This is like described in the story, right? So as young as your first exposure to a fairy tale.
That's sadly really, really true. And so it's interesting. Yeah, I knew that it was going to go in fascinating directions because all of you are fascinating people. So where do we start? Like just going to basic terms. What are some of the basic terms that most of the people watching right now are white, listening to those of you that are Black? What are some of the terms we need to be aware of to change, to be more sensitive to really even fully understand? And that's a question to all of you. I'll put it to all of you. Sharif and then Antoinette.
Antoinette.
You go ahead first, Sharif. You're already there.
I'm hesitating a bit in terms of going first because I'm going to question Scott's question. I don't know that the issue is whether or not you're using the correct language, whether or not there are better terms to be used. I start with systems and structures, okay? What are the systems and structures that you are living with? And how do those impact your life? When Reverend Bridge was talking about the separation in our lives from art and from science and from knowledge and from all, from spirituality. When we're looking at all these things in terms of separations, and someone says, well, I want to go into biochemistry. Well, immediately, they won't be dealing with anything musical. They won't be dealing with anything that's political. They won't be dealing with anything that's spiritual. They're going to be sitting around, looking at chemistry. And that's what's gotten us into the problems that we've got right now, is that we can't pull all this stuff together. E.O. Wilson created the word consilience. We can't pull all of this together and jump it all together so we recognize we're all talking about one thing. Similarly, the situation, looking at the situation from the point of view of race, how we look at and how we even consider the concept of community in our society is flawed. Okay, we think of community being collections of these little boxes that we stick people in. You know, everybody gets, you know, the parents and the children and the dog or cat and the television set, because everyone has to be self-contained. And that model, which came out of like the 30s or 40s, back before they even had TV, everybody would gather around the radio. Okay. That model is flawed and has led to the kind of society we've got right now, which exacerbates all of the stuff around racism, sexism, homophobia, the whole 9 yards. We're that way because we don't know each other. We don't see each other anymore. And so I'm concerned a lot less with the language that a particular person uses. I'm concerned an awful lot more with what we think of as economics. What do we think of as politics? What do we think of as, and how all these things are predicated on false assumptions or assumptions that no longer hold water. Okay. That's why I tend not to use the term white supremacy, because all of us have been so infected by it. And if the program goes another 3 or 4 hours, I could be glad to fill it up with lots of examples of it. Okay. But the thing that I want to do is look at how do we go look at the big picture and then start narrowing that down to how do I change my behavior. Okay, I'm now complete.
Well, and well, hopefully not, because we're going to be with you all weekend
I'm not
long.
going to say anymore.
So with this 6-week experience that we offer, we don't start with racism at all. We start with a conversation about humility, beginner's mind, desire. Can you articulate what you desire? What kind of world you desire to live in? What kind of relationships you want to have? Who do you want to be? How do you want to show up in the world? And then from there, we talk about integrity. Are you in alignment with those desires? Are you in alignment with the laws of nature? Is your community, your family, your neighborhood, your city, your state, your country in alignment with these things? And if not, are you able to identify and then articulate what needs to shift, what needs to be expanded or addressed where you are? One of the things that you can ask yourself is, when was the last time a person of color sat at my table and broke bread with me? Mm-hmm. When was the last time I had an intimate relationship with a person of color? And by intimate, I mean someone who trusts you and knows they can come to you if they need you, and that you would go to, that you know you can go to, that you have an actual relationship with that person. And we start here because empathy is sorely lacking. This is that division thing, the separatism thing. Empathy is sorely lacking. So if we can address, starting there, why are we so why are we unable or seemingly unable to access humility? Well, it feels threatening because of the way that most people define it. Because in the society we live in, humility is making yourself smaller than the other person. It is making yourself, sometimes even making yourself wrong in order to spare the other person. But the Zen Buddhists define humility as oneness, the practice of oneness. And they define conceit as any form of self-comparative, self-focused comparison. So superiority, inferiority, and equality in assertion, being asserted, these are all forms of conceit according to the Zen Buddhists. If we get away from the comparative thinking, then think of ourselves as one, because actually, even on a scientific level, we are connected. We are not as separate as we imagine ourselves. Everything that happens to me affects my whole community, right? Everything that happens to the man that lives down the street from me impacts the ecosystem of this community. We live in ecosystems and we don't even think of them as ecosystems anymore.
Thank you. I saw Antoinette raising her hand, so I'm going to add Antoinette to the conversation here.
Thank you so much, Scott. The reason why I'm raising my hand is because the one thing that my sister, the Reverend, has said early on, and this is something that I really, really want everybody to please take heed to what she mentioned earlier. Black people are not a monolith. You know, so even though three of us are kind of saying kind of like similar things, we are still three different people and we have three different approaches to how we see and do things. And she also mentioned something else about her course and about, you know, like, when was the last time you had somebody over for dinner or something? So this is what I'm going to do right now, because I really have to get this off of my chest right now. Because as I'm seeing these comments, this is the very thing that started this whole thing before, when we had to start the Bridging the Divide. This was the very thing that is why we don't have a bridge, you know, because before, if anybody was listening to Sharif and to the Reverend and to myself, we hadn't even gotten into what we really would like to get into. Am I right? Am I wrong? All right, we have
and there's a whole chat thread full of opinions.
We haven't even gotten there yet. We're still just trying to peel open the little piece here. And before we even peeled over that little piece, I don't know if you guys are checking what's in the comments. Please check them, because this is how we're going to go down that rabbit hole. And this is what I feel that needs to be addressed, because each and every single time I feel like people are not hearing me and a lot of other people. You know, I can't speak for the Reverend or for Sharif. They will speak for themselves, but I can sit there and say for myself and for many other people of color and many other Black people, this is the thing that we feel like our voices are not heard. We didn't even get a chance to say anything before all the defensiveness already started coming inside of the chat. What in the world? You know, I'm shaking right now. This is how much it's bothering me right now. I am shaking right now. The amount of times that someone can sit there and tell me we are all one. As a spiritual person who tells people and who preaches we are all one, who teaches we are all one, who says it every single day we are all one, we are not all one. In reality, we are not all one. In reality, we are all one, according to God, according to universe, according to everything. We are all connected. We all know this. But in real life, we are not all one, because the rest of us are still living in a very crappy world right now. That's just the honest to God truth. Why not complicate? Why is it so simplistic? It is very complicated. It is not so simple, because the simple test was a simple doll test. The white doll or the black doll. Everybody still chose the white doll. So obviously it is not that simple. It is very complicated. Why is everybody still choosing the white doll? And the other
And
problem.
I would encourage folks to just breathe
Mhm.
and remember what it means to be a masterful communicator. Part of that is masterful listening and not speaking or transmitting over what's being transmitted to you. And I say that humbly because sometimes I know it's difficult when it's an uncomfortable conversation, but it is sorely needed that white people in particular be willing to sit with the sensation of such a conversation and hear us out. It's very important.
I don't like to say white people either, but
Thank you for bringing that up, Antoinette.
Yes, because the thing is that they say, well, stop dealing the race card. And it's like, or stop playing the race card. Trust me, I would love to not play the race card.
Right.
When
Right.
you stop dealing the race card, we don't have to play the race card.
Well, I wish this was a game.
Right. But you know, and we've said this before, Scott's white hair, and I said this the other last week on the sign as well too. I love people's colors. I love white color, I love yellow color, I love pink color, I love yellow orange color. I want people to see my color. I want the vibrancy behind me, you know, and like I said, I like whites, you know, Scott's white hair. I like brown hair, I like black hair, I like blonde. I love all kinds of colors. We should be able to celebrate and recognize all the colors of all the people around the world and celebrate that. We should not be ashamed. I should be ashamed. I should be happy to say I'm Black and I'm proud. You could be happy to say I'm white. Yes, you're white. You don't have to say I'm white and I'm proud because we already know white people are proud and we already know all these things.
Okay, let me jump in there for a second. I do, one of the things I do is consulting work. And one of the places I do my consulting work is on the concept of inclusivity and inclusivity in the workplace. I get called in when there is a problem. And generally the problem is around race. Sometimes it's sex, sometimes it's something else, but generally the problem is around race. And I get called in to train workers who are saying some amazingly inappropriate things, doing some amazingly inappropriate things, etc. And my students, all of them hostile, defended, don't want to see me and wish they could go back into their pickup truck and get a gun and shoot me. All of them have an issue. And I understand their issue, which is why they listen to me. And their issue is they have the lowest self-esteem of anybody I've seen on the planet. They are not proud. They are not self-confident. They are empty inside. And they're being told by people, oh, you're powerful, you're running the country. They know they can't even run their own household.
That's right. Yes. So
they are being told that they're keeping people down and they can feel somebody's foot on their head.
Mm-hmm.
And so the point that I take is, yeah, all of us are privileged. Every single living being is privileged to be able to take a breath, eat some food, etc. Some of us have more privilege than others. Some of us have just different privilege. It's not more or less, just different than others. And when I'm saying to them, you're privileged, they shut off like a light switch and get very angry. When I say to them, we're on the same planet and we are all facing the same thing and we need to look at what's inside of ourselves, all of a sudden, they start to come alive And when they come alive, they can see me and see each other in a very different way. So a really weird turn of events in my life, I'm doing self-empowerment for white people, for the white people who know that they're not empowered, which is a whole lot of them. So I want us to be very, very careful there, because when we start lumping the guy who literally crawls around in your sewer to unblock it with the CEO of, a Fortune 500 company, we are not doing that person a service, and we're keeping them from understanding the issue. Once it's like, oh, they actually feel like me, like they think that all Black people are Beyonce, okay? More billions than she can count, and we're looking at all of them as these kind of evil manipulators. I look at the people who go to a Trump rally and I feel sorry for them. I just say, let me at them for 3 hours, and you're going to see hearts and minds change.
Mm-hmm.
But they're only listening to their own narrative. That's why we have to expand the narrative and use language that they actually can hear.
I think the history is so very important. History is incredibly important to understand. Well, where do white people come from? What cultures do they come from? What was happening in those cultures? Imperialism. Imperialism was happening in those cultures. Burning at the stake in the town square happened in those cultures. Dungeons happened in those cultures. Hangings and beheadings happened in those cultures. Fundamental religious persecution happened in those cultures. One of the main reasons why Europeans left Europe was because of trying to escape the oppression of Europe. And so we need to talk about intergenerational trauma and how that impacts white people's ability to sit in the sensation, as I was speaking about earlier. And then once you are aware of what's happening inside of you, then you can curb some of it. You can dismantle or disrupt your reactionary platitudes that you want to throw out to blur the conversation or to fog the conversation or to bypass. Those things are only happening because there's something being triggered that's much older than you know.
Yeah.
We actually all are under the same system and being treated differently within that system. And the history will show you exactly where those things started. Bacon's Rebellion is where whiteness as a name for European people began. Bacon's Rebellion happened because the poor white people who were working alongside the slaves were beginning to come together with the slaves and turn against the plantation owners. And the plantation owners were not going to have that. And so they began to, same thing happened actually in Europe as well, with the Catholic Church and the Church of England turned their own people against African people, African culture, African science, African spiritualities, and therefore also paganism. So all of this race stuff has been put upon all of us. And white people, because, let's just stick with Bacon's Rebellion. The deal was you side with us. And in other words, the poor white folk side with the plantation owner, and they'll get a little bit of extra. And they won't be treated like the African is treated, like the Native American is treated. And that's how we started with overseers and slave patrols and things like that, you see.
Well,
So
you also know that the genesis of the Ku Klux Klan was to drive a wedge between the poor, the newly landed Black farmers and the older landed white farmers, both of them catching hell at the mill, getting paid too little. And they were like, let's combine our produce and let's sell it at a better price.
right,
It's in our interest to combine.
right.
And in the interest of the banks and the mill owners to get some of their guys to wear white hoods and to start separating them.
Yes.
Question is, when someone is inviting you to separate, what do you do? Can you rise above that moment? Can you say, wait a minute, is there something inherent?
Well, at the time, though, Sharif, this was a threat. So if you sided with the African and the Native American, you were at threat. You could be killed.
Right.
You could be never let out of your indentured servitude.
But let's talk about what's happening right today, because
Yes.
I see the same thing happening to people right now
Mhm.
who can't rise above the invitation to separate from the other.
Mhm.
I was attending. I taught at Portland State University in the conflict resolution department for some years, and there was a meeting on campus about something or another. Okay, and people start coming into the meeting, and these four white guys walk into the meeting wearing military-style brown shirts and the jack boots, and all they did was walk in the door and sit down. Whole meeting went crazy. What are they doing here? And I managed to get the floor for like 10 seconds and say, what is this meeting about? Go ahead with your meeting. Those are four guys wearing brown shirts. They are here to do something with you. They're here to disrupt the meeting.
And they're succeeding.
No, they haven't done a single thing yet. All you need to do is go on with your meeting. But we were everybody else was so incensed by this. And they're just kind of sitting there with this smirk on their face, knowing that that the majority of the people in the room could not resist the bait that they were throwing out at them. And we have to be able to resist that bait. And we have to be able to recognize what is the big picture. And if we don't have a big picture, if our big
I think
picture,
there's still a threat.
What's that guy over there?
I think there's still a threat. And so what I ask, we have a community now of about
there's a threat in that meeting that I described.
Maybe not in that meeting directly, but there is a threat to white people, at least they perceive there is one, to siding with people of color. And there may be. So we have a community of about 350 people who've gone through my course. And I ask them pretty regularly, what are you willing to do for change? What are you willing to sacrifice? How uncomfortable are you willing to get? Because it's not going to be as simple as just choosing the right side. You're going to have to be willing to, because you will be threatened. Look at what has happened. I mean, just point. Think about what happened during the Trump years and how he was sicking people on people. This is happening. People are being attacked. People are losing jobs. People are being ostracized from their families. They're being ostracized from their communities for making that choice. And yes, that may happen. And yes, you do need to make a choice. Like, what are you willing to live for? What are you willing to die for? What are you willing to sacrifice some comfort for? Are you willing to, do you really want a better world?
Uh,
I want to
hear
say
what you're
one
saying.
thing, if I
No, you said you weren't going to say anything tonight.
I just want to establish context for a moment, which is each of you have such strong and beautiful opinions. And obviously, this topic, there are hundreds of hours of quality conversation that I wish we could have. And so I just invite all of us to listen. And if you get triggered by something that the others said, including if any of you get triggered by each other, the treasure is in the trigger. So let's just remember that the treasure is in the trigger. Why is that triggering me? What veil of past pain is coming down? Why am I getting scared? What is that bringing up for me? And let's use this weekend to make it safe to get triggered. I just wanted to establish that context, and I'll.
That's beautiful. That is a great response to the question I just asked. Are you willing to be triggered if it means that change happens? You know, are you willing to sit with hearing something that's not comfortable or that makes you feel a certain way? We cover 20,000 years of history in my course, and some of the history you will not learn in school. And intentionally, it's designed that way that schools do not teach you all of the facts. History, as is taught in the West, is written by the white people who, you know, are telling their own story. They're not telling my story.
It's his story, not her story. His
right.
story.
It's
And
definitely
it's
not
right now. In fact, it's getting so worse right now. And anybody who's watching or who's sitting in this room right now, in case you don't know about all the stuff that's being banned, you know, a lot of people don't even realize this, but you know, all the stuff that we did for MLK the last month, half the people didn't even realize that MLK is being banned. How many people know that MLK is being banned in half of these states right now? You know,
in many states, you cannot, teachers cannot teach about slavery and call it slavery.
You cannot say all the books that have the N-word written by Black people using the N-word, talking about, you know, they're all banned. All of those things are gone. And it's really, and so when people sit there and say, and this is like I said, we all need each other, and we can't be dividing ourselves between Trump supporters and liberals, because I'm telling you, I can get Trump supporters to support me in my work for Black people, and I can have liberal whites sit there and turn around and do something that was totally supremacist against what we were doing. So it's like right now, I need everybody, if we can just kind of get on board, because instead of buying these books and then placing them and doing this, it's like, wait a minute, why can't we stop? Why do we keep trying to fix the like same thing with like health? We're always trying to fix, we're not going after the problem. We're only trying to put a band-aid on things. You know, all this stuff with racism is always just a band-aid. We have not put nothing to fix the actual problem, which is we should not be banning history. This is the truth.
The people who, the people who profit are continuing to profit. They're profiting even more today than they were 50 years ago.
And the people who are not doing anything to stop this is your children and your children's future if they are not told the truth about what happened in America. And that's not just slavery. It's also the Chinese. It's also the Native Americans. It's everybody that made America to begin with. If we're never going to tell the true history of America, America will always be divided, and everybody's always going to be butthurt and triggered and having issues because we never dealt with the issue to begin with. You know, so let's start there and get to the truth, and then we can get to the beauty and goodness and the kumbaya and have a wonderful time then. That's my story.
You know, each of you has such a wonderful perspective. And of course, we all want to get to that oneness state, but we have a long ways to go. And it's all those things. We have to learn the real history, and breathe through the pain of that. We have to learn what are the steps that we can take. There's so much work we have to do.
And it's all possible, Scott. It's all possible, probable even. I am witnessing on a daily basis white people learn things that actually change how they view themselves, change how they view each other, and 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 actually has them really think about how they're going to address it. Uh, I've seen a lot of people come through my doors who have done other programs or done other work, and they're angry and they're combative and they're fighting with other white people and, banishing their family members and all this kind of stuff. Well, what if that's still a part of the imperialist perfectionism and white supremacy, the violence, the aggression? What if that's still a part of that dominant narrative? And what if we need to really learn how to be with each other and how to communicate in ways that are actually masterful and actually allow us to hear each other? So and it's totally possible. We have an exercise in my course that shows people their own bias. And every time we run it, it's bizarre to watch how, even though going in, people know that this is an exercise that's going to show them their bias still comes out and they still hold on to it and still grasp to it and defend it. This work is important. It's important, and everyone should be doing it. It's not a punishment. It's actually liberating.
Yes, yes, yes.
I'm an optimist.
I know that Sharif needs to take a short break, so I'm going to put the spotlight on you for a moment, Sharif. Just to say, give you a moment to share what you want to share, and then you can take your break and then come on back.
Yeah. I'm listening to the conversation. I'm agreeing with everything. I'm agreeing with the historical view. I'm agreeing with the let's make this real view. I'm also agreeing with some of the comments of we are one. Love is the answer. We've been saying that for somewhere between 2000 and 2,500 years. If we knew how to apply that, I'd be out of a job. Okay, I'd take up photography because I would love to do that full time. So I wrote a bunch of books, and the one that I've wrote most recently is called Practicing the 12 Steps of Inclusivity. And this is what my current workshop is on. And I have a new workshop coming up, a new 6-week series coming up. And by the way, Scott, I do have a special offer for the folks who are online right now, and the folks will be attending this weekend if they want to sign up. But if you notice, the part about practicing is in red, because everybody believes in inclusivity. Everybody, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It's drilled into us. We can say those words out of our mouth. The thing I'm trying to get us to do is to see how nothing else in a society supports that. Okay, and everything in society supports I'm separate from you, I'm different from you, and I can do anything I feel like doing to you, and nothing comes back to me. I can treat you well. Nothing, it doesn't matter whether I do or not, nothing comes back to me. I can treat you poorly, I can lynch you, I can hang you, etc. And this part of our being that makes those kinds of divisions, makes the divisions around every possible way that you can separate human beings. Race, we're talking about race right now, but it's also around sex. It's also around where you're from. I can show you this document that was written in the 1800s, and it's written by a person in England. And the question was, are people from Eastern Europe human? Are they? And his conclusion was, no, they're not human. Okay. They don't have the refined faculties that we do.
Sharif, I really want people to let that land.
Yeah.
I lived in Germany for 5 years, and from one town to the next, people were had xenophobia and thought of each other as so different.
Those people, and those peopling of others is rooted inside. There's if you could find the neuron where that's located and clip it out, we live in paradise. Okay. So our challenge is, how do we actually practice this? And I have so many people who say in terms of my workshop, oh, I know all that. I don't have a racist bone in my body. I said, yeah, but it's all that racist cartilage in there, that's the problem. And so the challenge that we've got is, how do we look at that separation module as a whole? You know, the whole concept of whiteness is just shorthand for, oh, we're all together. And no, we're not all together. How many wars have been fought in Europe? How many wars are being fought in Europe right this second? How many people are dying because we don't see each other as the same. We don't see each other as one. And when we start actually practicing that, and the depths in which we have to practice that, all of us get to be on squishy territory. For those of us who have traveled outside of our bubble of the United States, and that bubble extends to other countries. I know somebody who said he's been around the world and he's only been inside the American bubble. You know, you go to the Sheraton in Kampala, you go to the Hilton in Mumbai, you go to the you've never been out of the bubble. I get way out the bubble. Actually, born out of the bubble. Camden, New Jersey is nowhere near the bubble.
Get some black people in your bubbles, people. Get some black people in your bubbles. When we were doing the Bridging the Divide, I always encouraged everybody. It's like, if it's just me and my husband as the black people that get some more black friends. Yep. Please get some more black friends. If you know one, get another one. If you know two, get two more. If you know, just
patronize black art.
Go into a black neighborhood. Go eat at a black restaurant, shop in a black business, but you go into a black neighborhood and just immerse yourself in there.
And for heaven's sake, buy Sharif's books.
Yes.
Before you buy a white person's book about racism.
That's a good
please.
Book. So since Bridge brought it up, and we are going to take a look at Bridge's course and something for Antoinette, but this is Sharif's website. So since you brought it up, I might as well do that now. And it's commonway.org, commonway.org. And Sharif, where would you like me to direct them?
Actually, I would not. Okay, and I'll tell you why not. I would ask you to direct them to the activities page, and then go into all of the activities around practicing the 12 steps of inclusivity, which starts on the 16th of March. But because I've got a special offer for you, I've got a different click here to register button for you that has a $50 discount for anybody who's watching this program and the other two programs over the course of this our 3 days here. And I would encourage you to do that. Now, for almost all of you, I know that you're all independently wealthy and you just throw all your money around, and $50 doesn't make any difference to you. But if it does, you'll learn I have a twisted sense of humor. If it does make a difference to you, I hope that you can you can take advantage of that. And I'm going to try to right now put into the chat the link that you would have, that you would use in order to get the discount.
Okay, great.
And I'm scurrying around right now to do that. And so this is, whoops, and I'm going to give that to everybody. And so this is the discount that you would use, the discount page that you would use to do that. So go to the website, go to activities, go to practicing the 12 steps of inclusivity, read about it. And if it's something that you want to register for, click that special link I just gave you. There's very few people who are getting that. And I would suggest you do it relatively quickly, because I've only got 30 seats in the workshop, and the series that I've got right now filled up fairly quickly, and tried to overfill. People were trying to sign up even after I had closed it up. They're like, "Here, take the money. I'm paid in, so now you got to let me in." It's like, no, I give you your money back. So
that's wonderful.
Yeah,
good to hear that people up there are also. I'm actually just happy to be sitting here with the two of you, and sometimes this can feel like lonely work, and it can feel very, people are watching me do this work and they think I'm a little bit crazy to be doing it, and maybe a little naive or something, but they don't know. They're making assumptions, and that's what we're trained to do, is make shortcuts, make assumptions. And if we don't use curiosity in beginner's mind, we are limiting ourselves. We are actually collaborating with our oppressors, and those who actually benefit from keeping us unaware and ignorant. So I'm so happy. I'm actually writing myself a note to get in touch with the both of you for later purposes. So
I hope so.
I'm like, friends.
Yes. We're in this together, and I really I do feel like a lot more supported now, the more that we keep having these conversations. Ever since I begged Scott from last year, or from even before then. And I want people to know, because I think the most frustrating thing, especially for those who are watching on my Facebook pages, is that when they do come around, it's like, no, I don't always talk about race. I wish I did talk about race as much as you think I talk about it, because when I'm kind of scrolling through my Facebook feeds and stuff like that, I actually have to save all the stuff, because I feel that white people can't handle too much racial discussions and talk per day. So even though I see a lot of traumatizing things throughout the day, I just save. And then I post, we're all one post, some foodie post. Here's a selfie with me and Pato on the airplane, 300 likes over there. Here's some injustice going on over here. Crickets. Nobody wants to say anything. Nobody wants to see it. Nobody wants to talk about it. So again, it's like I'm just talking to like dead silence, dead air. And we just want people to sit there and say, listen, this is something that's really affecting us. Even though you see all the good times that we're having, I'm telling you, there's some issues that's affecting us on the daily, and what it does to my psyche, and what it's doing to my husband's psyche and other people's psyche. They just think that we're strong people. And I'm trying to let people know our mental health is at stake. our mental health is at stake, which also affects our physical health as well too, because we deeply feel and we deeply care. And it's really hard for us to sit there and be turning on and off, because especially as Black people, it's like, some things like, that ain't my issue right now. It's like when we try to talk to you guys about our issue, y'all didn't care. So now you want me to be all up in your issue. Well, right now, I ain't caring about your issue right now. And then we have to go through these things where, like our vote being taken for granted as usual. We said this how long into the elections going in. And then everybody said, wait, let's give Biden a chance. We don't know what he's going to do yet. Well, how long has he been there now? We never gave anybody else that amount of time or energy, but then we love some Biden. Well, Biden has not done anything for our student loans. He has not released our brothers out of prison. He has not cleaned clean water for Flint. He has kicked our brothers and sisters out from the Haitians and everybody out over there at the border, because I've seen them down there, but he's letting in, guess what? They get to pick and choose, based on the lightness, so that's just one of those things like we got to keep on trying to figure out.
And go ahead, Rich.
I was just going to say, on a personal level, I have a 25-year-old son who is brilliant. And I say that not as his mother, but as a fellow human being. He has a very high IQ. He is beautiful. He is multi-talented. He has a beautiful heart. And at 25, he is privileged as well. We worked very hard to make sure he didn't have to want for much of anything, and that he was sheltered from a lot of the sort of things that most young Black men have to go through. And we put him in the best schools we could afford and all of that. And at 25, he has anxiety and he has depression, and he has to contend with the intergenerational trauma in our family, and how that affects relationships. And people don't want to really get that intimate with this. And it is an intimate subject. Much of what Black people are experiencing in the world is very intimate. Our health, our safety, our economics, all of these things are very personal. And because it's not directly in a measurable way affecting our white brothers and sisters, it doesn't appear to be actually happening. So when you hear about it, it feels incredulous. It feels incredible. Like, if it were actually happening, you should know about it. But by design, that is not the case. You must get more intimate with people who don't look like you and actually trust a little bit. Even when sometimes we might get angry and impatient. And here's why. When you are traumatized about something, you would hope for a little extra grace. You would hope for a little extra grace. If you are, for example, let's just say you work in an emergency room in triage, and someone comes in and they're cussing and screaming and calling you names because they're in so much pain. Well, you get your feelings hurt and walk away, then you're not doing your job. And I think it's our job as human beings to hold space for each other through this. And we do need for white folks to be willing to hold space. Holding space doesn't mean talking over, or fogging or, dissipating or trying to fix it. It means being present enough to hear what's actually happening. You can't fix what you can't see. You can't fix what you can't witness And so bearing witness means that you have to stop talking long enough to be able to hear it. And this is, I mean this with the most respect, really. I mean, this is coming from love, that we have to be able to hold space for each other better. That there are times, some of you know practices of somatics where you wail and you moan and you groan and you let those things out. Well, a lot of the anger you see in the Black community needs to be let out, and there needs to be space held for that. And for a lot of white people, they haven't done enough work yet in order to be able to do that. So this is not a judgment, but it is a communication that that's something that's needed, is for white people to show up and be present and be able to listen.
If I can do a amen on that.
Yes.
And again, I'm quoting from Practicing the 12 Steps of Inclusivity, and I think I should tell you where the 12 steps come from. Many of you are familiar with Sogyong Rinpoche's book called The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, which is different from the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Okay, so, but in the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, he talks about, in a section of it, he talks about why we get uncomfortable around people who are dying. And we can get very uncomfortable to the point of either trying to avoid them or ignore the fact that they're dying, okay? And so, so what he suggests over a number of steps is engage with this dying person. So when I read that, I realized that, you know, you take the word dying out, and this is a model for how we should be interacting with all of us in our human family. So step number 8 says, for real communication to be established, you must make a determined effort to see the person in terms of his or her own life, not in terms of your life, okay? And this is true whenever anybody interacts with anybody. So I had a young white guy, he and I, it was in one of my classes, and he was telling me how he was in a class that was talking about race. And he, the person, a Black woman, was saying, everybody experiences racism, you know, and if you don't experience racism, you're in denial. And she says, is there anybody in this room that's never experienced racism? And he raised his hand. And he was going to explain what he meant by that. And she did not allow that to take place. She like shut him off and shut him down. And he said, I was going to explain to her that I'm from Russia. I've only been in the United States for a week, and she's the first Black person I've ever seen in my life. Okay, so in terms of being able to see his world in terms of his life, like I didn't know that, you know, I knew there was that there were Black people in the world because I watched American basketball, but that's it, you know. And so all of us have to take off the blinders. And in the book, I give you a couple of examples where I'm the one wearing the blinders, you know. I'm the one whose bells get rung, not around race, but around class. I've managed to train myself really well, but I still get twitchy around this, you know. And our ability to literally see the other, to perceive the other, to not bog down whenever we are approaching the other, to How many of us have used separating and divisive language about Donald Trump, about someone who is clearly emotionally and mentally disabled? I was out on the street the other about a year ago, on my walk to the post office, and there was a guy, way overweight, way disheveled, etc. And he saw me, and he starts screaming racial threats. That he's scraping as far down the bottom of the barrel as he could get. What triggered for me was compassion for him, because obviously he's insane. He is not able to function. I mean, this is broad daylight.
And you're not even in an interaction with him.
I'm a block away. Okay. And what I was concerned about is like, how can I help him shut up? Because if I ran into the wrong Black person, or almost any other Black person I know, there would be an issue there. Okay. And I knew the place I was walking in front of was one of the public housing facilities that houses people who do have some disability. Okay. And now, the first thing I did is check for a gun. Okay, I mean, if he's had a gun or a weapon, I would be on the ground. I would be behind a car. I would be calling 911. I would be, but just to kind of like, can I get in contact with the manager of the place, or like how can I help him, as opposed to, I'm going to put him down, etc. For me to be able to do that means I need to be solid enough in myself to recognize something that the Tibetan Buddhists call drala. And what drala means is above your enemy. And to be, and not above in distance, but above in terms of, let's say, bigness of heart. Okay.
Preach, Sharif.
Yeah, to be so big that I don't get threatened when this person is doing this. I was in Sri Lanka some years ago. I work with an organization called Sarvodia. In the canteen, there are 300 people or so eating their food. And this kid, I'd say maybe 3-4 years old or so, taps me on the leg and he says something to me. And he's speaking either Sinhalese or Tamil, probably Sinhalese. But I don't know how to, I don't speak it. So I bend over, I touch him on the shoulder and say, I can't understand you. And I'm saying this in English. I'm going to find somebody who can understand you. And so I start looking around among these 300 people, which ones speak both languages, and just in case I get the wrong language. Okay, so I'm looking around and he taps me on the leg again and he says something else. I said, okay, just wait a minute. I'm getting somebody to help you. And so I finally see someone who speaks Sinhalese and Tamil, and I say, talk to this kid. And they do. And then they said to me, I'll take it from here. And the kid turns around and punches me in the leg. I mean, he was just so frustrated by me. And I was the stupidest person he had ever come across. Okay? And now, if I had low self-esteem, I would have punched him out. You'd do hitting me. You'd grab him and slap him. But I first of all, he couldn't hurt me. Second of all, I understand his frustration. I'd be frustrated too. Probably wouldn't punch him out, but I never found out what he wanted either. But but so how can we talk about practicing our inclusivity, talk about practicing we are one or we are love. And the people who talk about that, I bring them into one of my meetings and have them freak out. Okay. Have them freak out when they are face to face with their other.
Mhm.
And it's not a pretty picture. Okay. It's not easy to do that. I'm not saying that this is all easy. And I'm not saying that I don't stumble. Sometimes I stumble and fall flat on my face. You get up, dust off, and then you keep doing the work. Pronouncing we are love is one thing. Demonstrating we are love while you're walking down the street past a group of people who don't look like they like you is a whole different story. Most of us lock ourselves into our comfortable houses, go to our very comfortable churches on Sunday or Saturday or Friday, and treat that as our entire world.
Yeah.
And so we need to get out into the world and see the world from, see it from his or her own perspective.
Yeah, I want to flirtatiously challenge this particular community that this is a global peace movement, and that is an intention that y'all have set. You came into this community for that purpose, to spread that concept. So that's not a simple thing.
No.
It is not a thing that you're going to make happen just by repeatedly saying love and light everywhere you go. It's going to require some work on your behalf. The other example I like to use around holding space is when a woman is going through labor, sometimes she will cuss out her husband. He does not leave, right? You understand what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
I've been on the receiving end of that one. What did you do to me?
Right. And you did not leave her. You did not take it personally. And you, not only that, you actually empathized with what she was going through in that moment, because you don't have a clue what that feels like.
Right.
So if you could, that's the challenge I would make to you, that you can expect Black people to be angry unless they've done the kind of work that I've done, the kind of work that Sharif has done, the kind of work that Antoinette has done. This is years of work, years and years, therapy and personal development and education, years. I have probably just financial investment in my personal development is close to $100,000 at least. So understand that my ability to sit here and not emote angrily comes from having done a lot of work. And most people don't have the money or the resources or the knowledge or the education to have done as much work as we've done. So you cannot expect that you will be trusted by every Black person. You can't expect it. You cannot. Just let it go. Don't get your feelings hurt about it. In fact, show up as if you know who you are, you know what your intention is, and be that intention. Show up as that intention. Like the husband would stay by his wife's side while she's cussing him out. Mm-hmm. Like be my sister, be my brother. See me through.
Mm-hmm. I've got to do my host thing for a minute because we are at 9:05 and I'm fine with going later, but I do want to I want to let people know how to work with with Bridge, and I also want to talk a little bit about Antoinette. So I want to do my hosting duties for a moment. And I also want to acknowledge that this is a step for us. We peaked at 49 people, and we still have 43. Okay, so we didn't drop down to 20. Okay, in the Zoom room here.
That's pretty
That's
good.
beautiful.
Yeah, and I hope that most of the 43 are going to come back tomorrow night, and again on Sunday, and I'll talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing then, and I really hope that people will commit to either taking Sharif's course or taking Bridges' course. And Bridges' course, you'll find her at the rememberinstitute.com. Rememberinstitute.com. And Bridge, where should I direct people?
Go in the campus menu to courses.
Okay, got it.
So here's where you'll find our course offerings. There's an open house there that is free that you can click on, and it'll introduce you to some of our master teachers. Our teachers are all people of color. Most of them are people of color. Some of them are disabled. We are not just, we are about anti-oppression and decolonization. So we try and bring in people who are sociologists and activists and radical feminists, et cetera, et cetera. You can find our courses there. The Heal Thyself course only has one more run on the calendar this year, and that is in June. It is 6 weeks. If you're going to sign up for it, don't sign up for anything else at the same time. It will require your full attention, and it will change your life. I can say that from observation of our 15 other runs. This will be the 16th time we run the course. If you decide to take that run of the course, I can offer you a discount, a promo code. That promo code would be HT for Heal Thyself, HT Friend, and that will get you 50% off of the course.
Great, thank you.
HT Friend.
Okay, great. And I'm going to put in again the course.
And the course is called Heal Thyself. We have an entire series of courses we call the Curriculum for Diversity Consciousness. Once you've taken the Heal Thyself course, you are eligible to take other courses like our holistic business practices. We also have a study in Hermeticism and Cometicism. We are expanding. We just started a liberated wordsmith writers salon series as well. So we're making an effort to build something that incorporates art, science, technology, and spirituality in ways that will disrupt some of the structures of our society that we need to work on.
I want to testify for a moment that my teaching partner, Trish, is taking her course a second time, and it did change Trish's life. And she went through a real period of discomfort. I want to say it was not comfortable for her because it was such a wake-up call, but it changed her, and then she kind of has adapted the way she thinks. She's adapted the way she teaches. She's made some really big changes in her life. And she's taking
people leave my course very much confident in their ability to honor their own integrity. So one of the things that you'll realize about my students is, Trish, the last time I was on with you, Scott, I asked Trish a very charged question. I asked her, "Are you racist?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "Could you say more?" And she explained. And I said, "Well, how do you feel about that?" "Well, I don't like it, but I'm working on it."
Yeah.
You see, this is not we're not trying to foster shame and guilt. This is about rooting out what is and becoming more of who you really want to be in the world.
Yeah, if I can piggyback onto that, I had someone ask me, someone say, I'm not racist. And I said, if you were raised in America, in the United States of America, you are. I said, as I am sexist in that I was raised and acculturated as a male in a sexist society. Now, I can try to minimize that to the extent possible. And I think I've done a really good job, but it's not, I'm sorry, both hands patting. It's not, I'm not perfect. There's always room for improvement. And as I'm making my improvements, I'm not going to bog down in feeling guilty, defended, bad about myself, etc. And that's the energy that I encourage others to look at that. I found something. I have a slideshow on this, and I can't find the slideshow, but if I can share with you, and there's share screen is around here somewhere.
Down center.
I got it. So let me share with you how to have authentic communications with your other. It's a challenge for us to be engaging. We recognize that there are boundaries, but the boundary does not have to be a barrier. Number two, this is one of the most important points. Whatever you're doing, you're going to get it wrong. So relax. It's okay. I've probably encountered 100, 200 different languages. Just learn how to say I'm sorry in each one of the languages, and you'll be okay. So not only are you going to get it wrong, you're going to be misunderstood when you get it right. There's somebody who's going to take some issue with you. Nobody gets it right all the time. And on a metaphysical level, there's no such thing as right.
That's right. That is correct.
So what we're trying to do when we talk about authentic communication is increase the likelihood that you're going to get it right. You're going to be understood, and you're going to understand in intercultural situations. That you minimize the dangers when you get it wrong. It's like, oops, sorry, didn't mean to do that. I'll try not to do that again, and keep going. Moving beyond the political correct speech so that you have an honest, authentic communication with another soul, with another being. Nobody learns anything from being superficial, freezing up, going numb, being bland. It's amazing how, especially during COVID, people avoided making eye contact, as though making eye contact would transmit COVID. Okay.
Right.
So to
this is beautiful.
That all of us are learning, and all of us need to be committed to a continuous learning process. As elevated as the Dalai Lama is, he can learn something new about how to interact with the other. Okay.
Absolutely.
So
we teach that we teach an integrity practice at the beginning of the course that eliminates the phrase "I'm sorry." You only say "I'm sorry" if you actually feel sorrow. Okay, so instead of "I'm sorry," we have people acknowledge their action, acknowledge the impact of the action or thought. It can sometimes be a thought or a perception, and then repair whatever damage is done and have a plan for how to prevent it from happening again. That is it. And this is what people really care about, is that you understand your impact.
Yes.
It's not important that you be overtly sorrowful about it, because sometimes that feels disingenuous. It feels
often I'm sorry is a way to get over it. Oh,
right.
I'm so sorry I ran over your dog. What's for dinner?
It's asking for absolute it's asking for an absolution
Yeah.
or forgiveness.
Or it's being acculturated as a woman in American society.
Oh, Lordy.
With what, it's just an automatic knee jerk. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That, I didn't do anything to you. I didn't see anything. I don't even know what I'm saying. So I'm sorry about, but I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And yeah, so in the early parts of my workshops, I don't allow the term either. It's like, say something that would actually demonstrate that you're not just that this isn't just an automatic knee-jerk response here.
Right.
After
And
a
we
while, doesn't
teach
it
that.
better to not even say sorry anymore? It's just, we really just want to see some actions.
Well, yeah. And I also think about forgiveness differently. I think forgiveness is for the person doing the forgiving. I forgive for my own mental and emotional health. I don't forgive to absolve the other person of their responsibility for their impact. They are responsible for that. And they are the only ones who can restore their integrity. I cannot. So I don't teach my students to ask for forgiveness, for example. In fact, if your focus is on that and whether or not that person forgives you, well, you're focused on the wrong thing. You
Right.
need to focus on your own actions and your impact. The other thing I wanted to mention real quick, because I thought about it, something happened recently in one of our runs. We hired a trans woman, and because I am cis hetero in a cis hetero patriarchal society, it took me the better part of 2 weeks to get the pronouns right. And I was infuriated with myself. It was shocking. But that's a great example of how when you're born into a society, it doesn't even matter that on a conscious level, if we were having a conversation, you'd know that I'm not trans antagonistic, but I have cis hetero programming. So we all have the programming of the societies that we live in. A lot of Black people have anti-Blackness programming.
Yeah.
So
I love all of you, and I still need to do my host thing here for a minute because we haven't gotten to Antoinette, and I'm going to share the screen with you, Antoinette. The Awakening World, Global Peace Tribe, we really are doing our best to focus on many things. We're doing our best to focus on the spiritual side of things, on the social and racial side of things, and the mystical side of things, and our health. And I've known Antoinette actually now for 2 years, and she's been on many of the shows. And we discovered a few months ago that Antoinette's dealing with a very significant health challenge. And one of the things the Global Peace Tribe does is we raise money. And we've actually raised close to $200,000 since we started. And I do want to encourage people to support Antoinette's Healing Fund, her GoFundMe. I think I was the person who helped kind of get this going. I think I was the first person to donate. And I really want to give you a moment to talk about what's going on, what you feel comfortable sharing with our audience. And while you're sharing, I'm going to put the GoFundMe link into the chat box. And I'll do that on Unify. I'll do that on Love Coach Academy. And I hope that people would be willing to donate. And Antoinette, do you want to share a little bit about what's going on?
Sure. So I was diagnosed with breast cancer a few months ago, and it's been kind of challenging. It's been kind of you still on sharing, Scott. We're looking at your messages there.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
It's okay.
Let me go back to.
I was like, tell Fumi I said hi, by the way.
No, I forgot that I'm using that one because I was trying to get to the
worries.
to the link.
But it was interesting. I was just looking at something because some folks were also trying to help me raise money. You guys, we found out there was like some awesome places that offer healing out here, like in Mexico and in California and stuff. It's very expensive. It turns out that I chose to go natural and holistic with my treatment. And because of that, I think all my doctors have fired me, and they're not talking to me, and they haven't really been telling me what's been going on ever since I decided I was going to choose this route. Um, so it's been weird and it's been difficult, but also at the same time, I believe I'm on the right track because I feel good. I've changed a lot. Like it's basically this experience has basically been like a spiritual awakening. It feels like a spiritual awakening to me.
Mm,
You know, I didn't think of it as like, you know, why did this happen to me or anything? Because, you know, cancer could happen to anybody. You know, anybody can get cancer. Healthy people can get cancer, you know, not just, you know, people who, you know, destroy their body. So, you know, healthy people, vegans, meat eaters, smokers, drinkers, it doesn't matter. It's like anybody can get cancer. Babies get cancer, a lot of different things. I've learned a lot during this time of during you know the whole medical industry, besides about how you know Black people are treated within this industry anyway. 40% Black women actually don't survive breast cancer. And then I was sitting there wondering about that, and I found a person that I could buddy up with, that I realized she kind of stressed herself and anxietied herself into stage 4. And I realized
mm,
that a lot of women were actually doing this. And I'm like, okay, this is a mental issue. It can be a mental issue besides just a physical issue. So this kind of brought me back into like getting back to my roots, you know, getting back to my mind, body, and spirit, focusing on what matters instead of me just like at first, I had just come out of COVID, I treated myself at home you know, after a couple of days and got through that, lost a lot of weight. Next, you know, I was like, okay, now I got to start dealing with cancer. Started taking my vitamins and supplements. And then I was like, wait a second, I'm supposed to be moving. I'm reading somewhere that I'm supposed to be moving. And the more that I started reading and the more that I started finding out from other people what's happening with my body and my illness and disease and medicine and health and wellness, I was like, I realized I need to take control of my own health back into my own hands, you know? So,
decolonize that.
yes, exactly. And that was the thing, because what I realized that I made a misstep somewhere by changing my diet. I needed to change my diet, but what I didn't realize was that, you know how you have all these different protocols? You have Bob's protocol, Beck's protocol, Jim's protocol, you know, the truth about cancer. And what this is what I've learned. Your truth is everybody else's has a different truth. What I've learned is what I can only learn about myself. And everybody else's protocol is different for every single person. There's not one protocol that actually works for every single person. That's why I got scared. It's like, what do I eat? You know, it's like all 4 doctors told me I could eat whatever I wanted. I could eat ice cream. I could eat hamburgers. I could eat this. I could eat whatever. And I'm like, I don't think this is right. And I didn't understand how someone like me, you know, who doesn't know anything about medicine, at least knows I don't think I should be eating whatever I want to be eating, because I think that probably landed me here. Anyway,
Mhm.
so them not telling me and them not telling me that there's other tests that you can do, you know, besides mammograms and MRIs and other things that we're finding out that are giving like problems later, you know, spreading cancer or doing different things to you all this different stuff. And I'm like, what is really going on here? And then the more I started looking and the more I started searching was like that food can heal, you know, that natural herbs can heal. There's like a gazillion different, there's like 2 million or over 1 million different protocols of healing all kinds of crazy, deadly diseases that I had no idea. I had no idea that you can do over the counter medicines, over the counter vitamins, natural herbs, that you could repurpose drugs that for use for different things, that you could heal yourself. That most of these diseases, that the stuff that they're taking people with cancer are also for COVID and for a whole bunch of other issues. There's so many fantastic things that I'm learning that I think is exciting. So I'm not freaking out as much as I was freaking out before. I'm still a little bit worried and nervous because I don't know what's like happening, and because none of these doctors are talking to me. So it's like, I need to go find another doctor. I found one. I found some Chinese
Oh,
people.
good.
I found some Chinese
Good.
integrative doctors that are kind of like working in between. and I found out that there's tests, there's all sorts of things we have to pay out of pocket. There's millions and billions of dollars for chemo, surgery, and everything else. But for regular things that you want to do that you can cure things, you have to pay out of pocket for those natural ways. But I believe it's worth it. And I believe that we can get rid of it by going to the root cause and not just the symptoms, So thanks for listening.
I'd love for us to all take a moment of silence and just send Antoinette our healing love in our own unique way. Everybody watching at home, even watching the recording. Maximum grace for Antoinette. Maximum grace for Antoinette. Maximum grace for Antoinette.
Thank you. Thank you. And I do just want to say too that, like I said, ever since you did that Divine Mother show, and I came on there, that's what turned everything around with my healing too. When I heard that, I was like, that became my rise of the divine feminine. And I was like, I'm not going to just stay here, just, popping tablets and do whatever. I'm going back to work. So, next week, my husband has booked me 3 shows. It's called Rise of the Divine Feminine. So I'm going to perform. I'm going to create my 432 spiritual music. I'm getting back. I'm going to heal myself with my own music, so that's going to be like interesting too. So I'm going to, with the Rife frequency.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. I want to get one of those Rife machines because I saw there's a lot of stuff in there and I always knew there was something to it, but I didn't know the science behind it. So I've always been a spiritual person. Now I'm going to pull in all the science and all the spirituality in there together. And I wanted to catch that thing too, with Deepak that you had, Scott, because I end up earthing. I earth every single day. Me and my husband walk for an hour outside and I get into the ground. And then I got earthing kits all over my house. And I'm like, got EMF all around me. I'm praying,
That's awesome.
I'm meditating. I'm exercising. I'm Beyonce. I got the power. And you know what gets me in my exercise is like, you're not going to silence me. You're not going to tell me to be quiet. If you keep telling me don't talk about race anymore, I'm just going to keep working out. I got the power, the power, the power, so that's kind of like my daily routine. It's like, I'm not ready to go just yet. And if I do go, I will be making a lot of noise on the way out.
That's beautiful.
Thank you so much. And everybody, please do donate. While we were talking, I made another donation. I want to really encourage people. The prayer is really important, but we got to back up the prayer with action. Okay, so
Yes,
do both. We got to do both. And I do want to remind people, this is just the start of a powerful weekend. Tomorrow night, Saturday night, most of you are Global Peace Tribe members, so we actually will begin at 5:30, opening up the Zoom room, and then go live on Facebook at 6 o'clock. And Sharif will be back with us. Antoinette will be back with us. Also, Josie Ann, who's actually she's here with us. She's going to be with us tomorrow. Ivy Hilton and Nina Gray will be providing music, and they're amazing. So please join us tomorrow night and then again on Sunday. And on Sunday, what we're going to be doing is really getting into as many practical steps as we possibly can. And again, thank you, Sharif will be with us again on Sunday, along with Dr. Marty Casey, who's taking his course. She met him, they were both on one of my previous shows, and she fell in love with him, and I actually scholarshiped her for that. And Oshala D, you talked about supporting Black enterprises. Oshala first came to work for my theater company when she was 18 years old, and I was like mid-20s. And we've worked together on different projects for 40 years. And she runs the Marin City Arts and Culture Program. They have a dance place now where they do yoga and dance. They have arts that people in Marin City create. They have a shop, both online and brick and mortar. And Oshala's amazing. I love Oshala. And she's been a friend of mine for 40 years. We taught together when I ran the camp at Jane Fonda's Ranch. She was one of our counselors. We go back. So please join us for all of these shows. And then I actually have added another one. On Sunday night, we are going to do, there's a wonderful woman named Valerie Schoon who made an Emmy Award winning documentary called Invisible History, very much about the Black experience in Central Florida from the time they were brought over in enslavement. And so she's going to show excerpts of her movie, and we're going to talk about it. The power of invisible history as part of igniting social and racial justice. And that's something that we've added that'll be Sunday night at 6 o'clock. So there's a lot of opportunities to continue these uncomfortable conversations. So let's dedicate this weekend to my dog is he's wanting to be heard. All right, all voices to be heard.
And I'd also like to invite the Reverend and Sharifa also to send me your information. Well, Scott, you send me their information because there is one page that I'm doing on my website on the Stand Up for Justice site, and that is the resources page. This is going to be very important that people know that where they can go and get these courses. And I wanted to sit there and let people know, like, here's a place where everybody's doing courses and also other resources, because we'll talk about it tomorrow. But Eyes on the Prize series is something that I really want to get in every single school. And so other books, like the books that are must read, just like in that book called Black Men, Single, Obsolete, Dangerous by Haki Madhubuti, that bibliography is a great resource of books. And I want this on our page that people know there's resources that people can go and find all the time. This is our go-to selection, with two excellent teachers and great resources of books that if people want to read.
And Antoinette, definitely save the chat box because people have put some suggestions in there for you.
Thank
I
you.
want to give Sharif and Bridge a chance for kind of last thought for the evening, whatever you'd like to share. Sharif?
Well, I'm not sure this is the last thought I want to share, but I guess it will have to be. I just put up, and I always forget to do this, so I just remembered to do it. A lot of the links for Commonway, for most of my books, and for the website itself, and for my TED Talk. So you can check that stuff out.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. I look forward to talking with all of you more tomorrow and then more on Sunday. I think that our challenge as we're looking through all of this convoluted stuff is, can we keep our eye on the vision that is lying in our hearts, dormant right now, because we haven't shined enough light on it. We haven't put enough water on it. We haven't nurtured it enough. And this notion of how do we create a world that works for all living beings? One of the, in all of the noise that we hear about all the different things going on in society, I always cut to the chase and say, is your goal that the world work for all living beings, including the people that you say that you're opposing? If your answer to that is no, then I've got to put you on my back along with everybody else I'm carrying on my back to this finish line. If you think that you're solving the problem, make sure you're solving the biggest problem. Make sure you're looking at it from this largest perspective. And make sure you're recognizing that we're all being called at this moment to this planet in this way.
Yes.
To do something, to actually take action. And once you get that little plant nurtured, once you get creating a world that works for all nurtured, you're going to see the right thing to do. and you're going to attract to you the right people to work with.
Absolutely.
More tomorrow and more on Sunday.
Thank you, Sharif. Thank you. Absolutely. And just compassion. That's all of our great teachers. What do they teach? Jesus, Gandhi, Martin Luther King. It all comes down to how can we be compassionate for ourselves, compassionate for the other. And it's constant practice, constant practice. And all the stories that you shared tonight, Sharif, practicing compassion. Reverend Bridge, I am eager to hear what you'd like to conclude with tonight.
The beloved Thich Nhat Hanh, who just recently passed, once said that the next Buddha is the Sangha. And Sangha means collective or community. This is not a time of singular, iconic heroes that you can worship for saving the world. This is a time for you and I to step up, come together in solidarity, and work towards better for the next generation. That is my final thought for tonight.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
Our audience has heard me say many times, we are the ones we've been waiting for. And this is the time we've been preparing for. All hands on deck. All hands on deck. Thank you, everybody, for being with us. Please share this out. Invite your friends. Invite your friends to some more uncomfortable conversations. And also some, hopefully, the theme of the Awakening World is inform, inspire, awaken. That's what we're here to do. And we're all helping each other to do that. So I bring our presenters back up. Thank you. Everybody, please watch, share this out, share the video, share the recording out, invite people to our upcoming events this weekend. Also, one last thing I had forgotten to mention. We heard Antoinette talk about Deepak. The Global Peace Tribe, that's us. We are hosting Deepak on Monday night. Deborah Giusti and I are hosting him. A 90-minute conversation, just you and me and Deepak. So if you've always wanted to actually ask him questions, it's connected to his book launch, but he will be live with us, taking your questions, leading a meditation, and his new book is all about abundance, the various forms of abundance. I did my sound check with him this morning, and he's got some really cool stuff to share. And everybody who joins, we are snail mailing you a copy of his book. So it's very inexpensive. It's only $35. And you get 90 minutes with Deepak and a copy of his book. So please do that. And you can register by going to deepaksbooklaunch.com. deepaksbooklaunch.com. And that is a Global Peace Tribe event. So thank you for reminding me about that, Antoinette.
It's an honor to be here with Sharif and Antoinette and everyone else in the thread, the rest of the folks on the panel. It's been an honor to be here with you tonight. I hope that we're not only thinking of this as uncomfortable. Hopefully it was less uncomfortable than as you thought it was going to be, and that you leave with some inspiration and maybe even some liberation. Why not?
Absolutely.
We're still here.
Yeah.
That's good.
And a closing reminder for us to pray for peace. A lot of prayer for peace. There's obviously action that can be taken, but let's every day, a few times a day, stop and pray for peace. And to stop the escalation, please, God, may the escalation stop. We are going to do our after show tomorrow night will be prayers for peace, music for peace. We've got some beautiful people. Fumi is going to join us. Feni and Vigari, other friends of mine coming in to play some music and pray for peace. So that'll be tomorrow night after the main show. Thank you, everybody. God's blessings, and we'll hopefully see you all tomorrow night. Good night. And thanks again.
Blessings.
Thank
Bye.
you, everyone.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you. Bye.